Today, Liss and I are going to be exploring the topic of disgust.
Hi, and welcome to Light for Life. If you are returning to our channel, thank you. We value and appreciate you. Our aim is to shine a bright light on your inner splendor and assist to connect you to your magnificence via what we intend to be enlightened sharing, potentially educational, and hopefully entertaining information, as well as encouragement for new perspectives. If you are new here, you are most welcome. We do hope that you will find our content highly beneficial and enjoyable. I am Liss. I'm a science of mind practitioner and a teacher of various healing modalities applicable to all aspects of the self and this life.
And I am Lori. I am a holistic wellness researcher and educator. Welcome to Connections with Liss and Lori. We use the space to offer our perspective regarding multiple different topics that we certainly hope you find inspiring. While disgust might seem kind of obvious, we always take a deeper dive and we always come up with, hopefully, concepts or ideas that you probably haven't heard of before. So I'm just going to turn this one right over to Liss and hear what she has to say about disgust, and we'll go from there.
Yes, Lori, I'm actually very passionate about this topic, and I do hope that it'll be enlightening and, like you say, potentially surprising. Disgust. We don't even really like to say the word, do we? It holds such a power somehow. And so exploring the idea of what disgust actually is was something that I was very interested in. Now, first of all, disgust is an emotion. And it is an emotion that is inherently protected because we are disgusted by things, usually that are dangerous to us. So when we smell a foul odor and it's disgusting, it's because that odor is coming from germs and bacteria and things that are potentially harmful for us. When we see something that's rotten or awful and we're disgusted by it, same thing. The emotion of disgust arises in order to protect us from the danger inherent in the disgusting thing. And this functions emotionally and relationally as well. In terms of what we experienced when we were very, very young, we decided that certain events, certain interactions, certain circumstances were threatening to us. They threatened our very survival in our very young minds. And so even as adults, if we haven't addressed those things, very often we are still disgusted by them to this day. So we don't even really consciously realize that we're coming from a place of judgment because we're experiencing disgust at an individual, at their choices, at their actions. And very often those are for minor things. I mean, should we be disgusted when people do terribly violating things? Naturally, yes. But should we be disgusted by someone's chosen attitude? Should we be disgusted by their lack of manners? I don't think so. I think that's reaching. And yet we do feel that way because our younger selves somehow felt threatened. If a person was rude, out of context, what might that mean to us? Perhaps it'll escalate and lead to violence, and so we're afraid. And so we still hold on to that emotion. And I wish that that was the end of the story, but it's not. Because you see, emotionally, we take it a step further. That we don't allow ourselves to feel disgusted. We then turn that judgment energy that we're operating in against ourselves. And we tell ourselves that we are somehow bad and we are somehow wrong to hold the emotion of disgust towards another person or because of their choices and their actions. So we judge and guilt ourselves, in fact, so badly that disgust is one of the most suppressed emotions. And how that emotion suppressed plays out in our bodies is in physical ailments that are disgusting. Because the emotion of disgust has to come out. And that is just one of its consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting when we bring up topics because while we usually arrive at the same places, we often start in such different places. You know, for me, when I was thinking about this topic, it was more kind of like you said, it was a judgment. It's coming from a place of judgment, and we have decided that anything outside of our belief system is like you said, it's bad, it's wrong, it's dangerous, it's not acceptable somehow in some way. So we feel a certain way about what it is that we're observing, but it does always come from those core foundational beliefs, right? From when we were young and learning about the world around us and establishing all of this programming in a way. So, like you said, we grow into adulthood with all of these young beliefs and all of these young programs. And I think sometimes it's great to look at the things that we do find disgusting and really ask ourselves, if I wasn't judging this so harshly, if I didn't feel so passionately about this, would I even really find it disgusting anymore? Would I even really have any feelings about it at all anymore? And many
Exactly.
times, yes, of course, we're going to have some feelings about it still. And that's when we can really start, in my opinion, we can really start to learn about ourselves and learn about our programming. And we get the opportunity to really evaluate, why do I find this disgusting? Why do I feel so strongly about this that it actually kind of turns my stomach a little bit?
Well, it's ironic that you bring up the stomach because, Laurie, that is how the shame is first introduced around the feeling of disgust. Very often it's when we're very little and we find something to eat disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't like it. We ooh and no, something about the texture, something about the flavoring, something about the look of it. It disgusts us. And then as little children, we are shamed for
Yeah.
feeling that way.
Good
Eat the
point.
food. It's perfectly lovely. I slaved for hours, etc., etc. And so that is how we couple the feeling of shame to the feeling of disgust. And because
Mhm.
we've done that, that's why we guilt ourselves when we feel that way. And the truth is, we do judge those things in others. And the biggest danger, if I can use that word, because it really is apt, the biggest danger to suppressing our natural instinct of disgust is that we don't even want to feel it in its suppressed form.
Mhm.
So what happens is we actually cover other negative emotions in disgust so that we absolutely cannot access them. So many people, when they start an emotional healing process, a journey process of some kind, releasing trauma, working through their past issues, they can't, literally can't, feel the feeling of anger. They can't access it. Cognitively, they know they're angry, but they can't feel it. A lot of people are that way when it comes to fear. They know that they're afraid of certain things, but they can't actually access the fear, feel the fear to process through it. And the reason why is because it's been buried inside of disgust. So if we will not look at disgust first, if we will not allow ourselves to feel disgusted and be disgusted by certain things, we're never going to access the emotions that we've covered in disgust. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more, though.
We just have so much less access to feelings that we've decided we judge as disgusting because we've covered them in disgust, and disgust is the most suppressed emotion. It's the thing that we never want to look at and we never want to deal with. So how are we ever going to deal with the emotion that's literally held inside of that overlay of disgust? And to give you some idea of just how suppressed the emotion of disgust actually is, think about it culturally. The prefix of dis is always put on a word in order to say that it's not that, or the opposite of that happened. So if you think of the word appointed, when you are appointed, you've achieved something, you've leveled up. When you're disappointed, you've been let down. When we approve and when we disapprove, dis is used to reflect the opposite. So when last did you ever feel or say that you're gusted?
Yeah.
I feel gusted. And yet, if disgusted is a word, gusted must be. But we have suppressed it and denied it to such an extent that that is not even in our vernacular.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So it may initially take courage to look at disgust because we're disgusted by it. But to give ourselves permission to actually look into the emotion of disgust, to understand it as a protective mechanism.
Right. Right.
So even those feelings of nausea that come up, or that instant urge to block your nose, or whatever it might be, recognize that that is your protector part. And so your disgust about things that are not physical, but emotional or relational in nature are really no different. We physically recoil. And so it takes courage to step forward and look into it instead.
Right. As with anything, it takes courage to look into instead of run away from. Absolutely. I'm trying to think of an example and I'm just drawing a blank because and I would think that this would be so easy for me because I've had digestive issues most of my life. So I would think that this would be something I could recall easily and quickly, but I'm kind of drawing a blank other than, like you said, issues in society. A lot of times the big issues that we deal with on a society level or a world level, a lot of times those are the issues that really kind of it literally just makes my stomach clench because it is threatening. There are real threats in this human world. But I'm trying to think of examples that are in our more immediate world, in our more immediate relationships with each other. And I'm really drawing a blank there. So what kind of examples can we use if somebody's listening to this and they really want to understand their own gust or their own disgust? What examples can you think of that they might be able to apply to their lives?
Well, Laurie, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect example from you right now, because this is exactly what I was saying. The fact that you can't even think of a potential example shows you the exact extent to which disgust is suppressed.
Mm.
So the fact that you could sit there, and you're a very intelligent woman, and not be able to come up with one example literally proves the point.
Well, I can think of big
But
examples. I'm trying to think of small ones.
yeah, but isn't it crazy that you can't think of a personal one?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, the truth is, we all go through this at least weekly.
Mm.
Someone dear to us makes a choice, and we're disgusted by it. And it could be something as simple as, I'm not going to phone you to tell you that I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going to be 30 minutes late.
Okay. Okay.
And we
So
think that's
interesting.
disgusting.
Okay.
And why do we think that's disgusting? Because we come to all sorts of conclusions about that. We decide that that means you don't love me. That means you're being inconsiderate. That means you're selfish. That means I'm not important. And that means, and that means, and that means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we're in judgment and we're disgusted by it, but we're not going to let ourselves feel that way because he's going to be home in 30 minutes. And I'm not a good wife if I don't greet him lovingly and understandingly through clenched teeth about the fact that he didn't let me know that he was stuck in traffic. So we judge ourselves instead. We inauthentically play a role that's not coming from our hearts. And we suppress all of that
Mm.
judgment and disgust.
Mm. Yeah, I can see that.
How lovely would it be if we were authentic with our husband and say, you know, sweetie, I feel so unconsidered when you don't let me know that you're going to be late because I worry about you. So please, would you try harder to give me a heads up in future? And then the next time he does, get to feel gusted.
Oh, everything is for us, isn't it? Everything is an opportunity. And I
Yes.
love playing the word with the word gust, with gusto, with
There we go.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Gusto.
Absolutely. You know, and it's so when you give that example, I actually immediately think that would be an anger response, not so much a disgust response. But I can see, you know, now that you're explaining it in this way, how the shame and the disgust and the anger are all kind of in a hot little toxic soup going on
Yes.
there.
Yes. And the one part that we won't acknowledge is the disgust.
Yeah.
We might be honest with ourselves and say, you know, that really makes me angry because we do believe that anger has a healthy component to it. And yet we don't think the same about disgust because we
Right.
don't realize that it's playing a protective role. So
Right.
we've just deemed it bad. It's just bad.
Yeah.
Beginning and end of story. It's bad to feel disgusted.
Yeah.
And I think that's
And
what we can potentially change.
well, and it boils back down to judgment, right? So not only do we judge others, but we judge ourselves just as harshly, or sometimes even much more harshly, because we feel
Yes,
a certain way about so many things, especially
yes,
when we're in relationships, especially, I mean, yes, this is a technological world and we can be pretty disconnected, but we still have relationships in our work and in our life. And, even a single person living on an island has relationships with the self. And you can
mm,
still be disgusted with yourself. And you
yes,
can still have gusto for yourself. When we
yes,
peel back the layers of judgment and start to see that we really are just spirit, and we really don't have to. be so harsh on ourselves and judge ourselves so harshly and judge everything else and everyone else so harshly when we can open that curtain, when we can have the courage to take a look.
And that's the thing. I think a very freeing mindset is to understand that all of the low and negative emotions, disgust included, but honestly, all of the low and negative emotions, whether it's depression or shame or guilt or anger or fear, they all relate to protecting the physical aspect of the self.
Yeah.
They are all protection mechanisms for life in this 3D, because this is where the dark and negative and low stuff takes place.
Yeah.
And then the higher frequency emotions are all there to set our emotions and our minds free, to connect us more with that higher spiritual light realm.
Freedom. Thank you for connecting with Light for Life. If you appreciate reminders, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can receive those notifications. If you would like to work with one of us, you can find our contact information in the About section of this channel.
Yes, thank you for connecting with Light for Life. Please share your insights, your questions, and your comments with us in the comment section below. We value your feedback. And we really hope that we will see you for our next episode. We upload one every Thursday. Until then, bye-bye and be joyful.
Until we connect again, we send you love and light.